Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another predictions video, and in today's video I'm going to be predicting the Rodriguez versus Lopez fight. If you are new around here though and you haven't subscribed, please do so. Like the video if you need like video, and let's get straight into it. So, going into this fight, Rodriguez 21-2 with 13 KOs, and Lopez is 29-1 with 19 KOs. This fight is for the vacant IBF World Bantamweight title. Rodriguez's last fight was a win via stoppage in round 10 versus Russell, and Lopez's last fight was a win via split decision versus Alvarez. Rodriguez is 31 and Lopez is 25. Rodriguez is the former IBF World Bantamweight Champion. This is Lopez's first 12-round fight and most definitely his toughest test to date. Rodriguez's losses have come versus Gaballo in 2020 and Inoue in 2019. And Lopez's loss came via TKO in round 9 versus Velasquez in 2019. Just before we kind of speak too much more about the fighters, just touch upon what I've just mentioned there. Of course, Rodriguez being the former IBF champ, he's going to be wanting to avenge and get his title back, and this is arguably in recent years his best chance of being able to do so, to be completely honest. And to be fair, he's worked his way back up. Obviously he got back-to-back defeats and that wasn't good, but he's now coming off a very impressive victory, one where, of course, it ended via stoppage, but it was a very dominant victory beforehand, and I feel like he would have won either way convincingly. And compared that to Lopez, who was maybe coming off a fight which wasn't his best performance, he definitely didn't show his full capabilities in that fight, and definitely didn't do as probably best as what he could. And maybe it's not going to be the best of signs going into this fight, but it may mean that somebody like Rodriguez could be overlooking, or could be possibly just not expecting as good of a Lopez as what he maybe should. But of course, it's like I mentioned, first 12 round fight, his toughest test, a step up for him. Obviously he's had them more fights than Rodriguez, but Lopez, them fights haven't been against anybody really of note, and they've just been kind of getting up the numbers, I suppose. And now he's getting to this point where he's finally getting this title shot, and it's one where it's definitely necessary and probably could have happened a few fights ago, to be completely fair. But maybe the loss kind of put a little bit of a spanner in the works in the way of him getting that title shot, and maybe he had to have them extra fights just to be able to kind of deserve this fight. But let's speak about the fighters. So Rodriguez, he's of course, like I mentioned, wanting revenge, wanting to get his title back. He's got great shot placement, got great snapping shots, been through adversity, got good body work, coming off a great win himself. Like I mentioned, he's sharp, got great counters, confident, composed. He will pick you apart. Of course, he's experienced, and that fight versus Russell was a great performance. He really did pick Russell apart, and against a top level opposition like Russell is. And I think now the fact he has been through that adversity and has kind of now added maybe a little bit more spite into him, and added just that little bit more drive into him, and given him that little bit extra push, and now he's fighting possibly his best ever, but maybe just not being able to beat the same level. I don't know, but I don't know if he could possibly go back and beat Inoue. Probably not. Gaballo, possibly. It was a close fight. A lot of people thought that Rodriguez won, but he didn't get the nod, of course. But you know, he's not ever, bar the Inoue fight, he's never really been fully outclassed. It is just Inoue is just too good, and he couldn't really handle him, to be completely fair. If he loses this Rodriguez, there's definitely arguments if he's past his prime, but from the win that he's just gotten, there's definitely arguments that he's not past it at all. So we'll have to wait and see how this fight plays out, of course. He can be outpunched a little bit at times. He did against Inoue, he just kind of got outpunched and just got outfought and just couldn't deal with Inoue, and that is completely understandable when it's pound for pound, in my opinion, the best fighter in the world. If he can't find your kind of rhythm, he does struggle a little bit. Like, he has to be able to gain the opposition's rhythm, have to be able to give him chance. So maybe on the inside he can struggle a little bit, but either way, there's not too many weaknesses. Like, there's like little bits of movement which you could maybe do a little bit extra of, or he's not crazily powerful, but there's nothing major, no kind of major red flags of what he does wrong really, but just little things that he could possibly change. But compare that to Lopez, who, like I've mentioned, he's a kind of fast starter, but somebody who, he hits hard, he's got a strong left hand, he's patient, he's got good fundamentals, he controls tempo, and he cuts off the ring, but he's not going to be doing as much in the later rounds, and that's what he had trouble with Alvarez. He really did start good. He really did well in the earlier rounds, but then he just let Alvarez get back into it with, I don't know if that's his gas tank, I don't know if that's just taking a few too many shots, or if that's, I don't really know what that was, but he just kind of lets other opponents get back into it a little bit, and it's definitely something that you don't want to see. And I feel like at times maybe he relies a little bit too much on his power. He does hit hard, like I mentioned, he's got that strong left hand, and he does rely on that possibly a little bit too much, but when he does cut off the ring and does get you in a corner, when he is landing and putting together them big shots, it is difficult to deal with, and it can be very tough to get out of them positions with a surviving, and that's why he's shown he's got them 19 KOs. It is impressive, but he can overcommit and can be reckless in the process. He can be wild, and when that happens and you're against a good counterer like Rodriguez, things could go wrong there. And he doesn't utilise his jab, in my opinion, enough. He can slow down, like I mentioned. He does take rounds off. I don't feel like you can take rounds off and should take rounds off at all against Rodriguez. It's possibly his gas tank. He's not used to fighting under this much pressure of being this kind of main event, big name kind of fighter against, with this whole big crowd. And his chin has been tested. It was tested against Velasquez, and Rodriguez could definitely test his chin. He's not crazily powerful, but if he gets together them snapping shots and he sits down on his punches, there's definitely a possibility that he could possibly find an angle or time a shot really well and then test the chin. And if he is going to take rounds off as well, then that's not going to be a good sign at all. Rodriguez is the favourite for this fight, and I think that Rodriguez will win via a KO in round 11. I think it could be a very dominant performance, and that could end in a late KO, and it could be quite a destructive KO, as I think Lopez, if he is slowing down and he is struggling with the tempo in 10 rounds fights, let alone 12 round fights, this could be a bad end for Lopez here. But I think that's how it's going to play out. Where do you go on to next, Rodriguez? I think he could fight Maloney again. He's the WBO champ at the moment if he wants to go down that kind of undisputed route, as his last fight with Maloney was a very good close contest. Of course, Rodriguez won that one, but it was a good close competitive fight, and I feel like that would be more than happy to be made again. Gaballo now. Rodriguez would have something to kind of give Gaballo back, then it could be worth it for them to fight again, give Gaballo a chance at the title, and let Rodriguez get a chance of getting revenge. Or Santiago, who's a WBC champ, just beat Donaire, could be another option if it's more going down undisputed routes. I feel like they're the kind of three main big fights. Obviously, he could fight Inouye's brother. He's the IBF, I believe, champ. I might be wrong on that, but there's a few options there. My personal preference would probably be Maloney. I don't know. Maybe Gaballo. I don't know. There's options, and I don't really hate any of the fights, to be completely fair. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you enjoy. Like if you didn't, like this, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.